Well, since I just finished binging The Defenders, it is now my responsibility as a YouTuber who has watched the Netflix MCU shows to now go ahead and rank them. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my ranking of the Marvel Netflix shows. I've really enjoyed these shows, and now that I've just binged The Defenders, it is my responsibility as a YouTuber to now go through and rank these shows, so I'm super excited to do that. I'm super excited to talk about these shows. Don't forget, I want to talk about these shows with you as well. So what did you think of these Netflix Marvel shows? Did you just finish The Defenders? Then I definitely want to hear your thoughts about it. I got a review for The Defenders coming soon. As soon as I can get the Cholo Nerd in here, he and I together are going to go ahead and just review this, and I'm looking forward to it. But for right now, this is my top 5 ranking of these Netflix Marvel shows. So, here we go. Let's kick it off. Number 5.
Jessica, let's start now.
Jessica Jones. This one falls at my number 5, not because I hate it. I don't hate it, actually. I really do like Jessica Jones. I like all of these Marvel Netflix shows, but I think this one appealed to me the least because of its overall style. Like, it very much had that, because she's a private investigator, so it had that overall old-timey PI movie feel to it, with the saxophone music playing in the background and all that other stuff. I don't know. It had that feel to it that just was not my overall favorite feel, and so I don't really want to go back and watch that one again or anything like that. I mean, I didn't hate it though. I didn't hate my experience watching Jessica Jones. I thought it was a good introduction to her character, and there were a lot of good things about the show. It's just overall, it wasn't the one that appealed to me the most. I mean, some of the highlights of the show, David Tennant playing Kilgrave, the villain of that show. Oh my gosh! Not only as an actor, did he do a great job portraying Kilgrave and making that character just super scary all by himself, but the show did a good job and its writing, wrapping your mind around the idea that an evil dude with that kind of power, it's scary. It makes you feel vulnerable. It's violating. I mean, the fact that he says it, you do it. It strips you of your free will, and suddenly you're doing everything that he said. And so, you know through this show, Jessica Jones had a very short career as a superhero. Then she got caught up in Kilgrave's web, and now she just doesn't want to do it anymore. Of course, you get the idea through the show. She still has the heart to want to help people because she becomes a private investigator. But she doesn't do it on the scale that she used to because, well, Kilgrave totally messed with her mind. It made her feel vulnerable, and of course it would. And so I feel like that was one great thing that this show did, and it really made this villain scary. I mean, it was something that Laura and I thought as we were watching this show. We're just like, wow, this guy is a really scary villain, and he would be a formidable villain for any of the heroes in the MCU. I mean, that dude is just scary. So to me, that was one of the highlights. It was also, like I said, a good introduction to Jessica Jones. They introduced Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, so it was a cool introduction to him. So there were things that they did that were pretty good with the show. It's just, it wasn't my favorite of these Marvel Netflix shows, but don't hate it either. Number 4.
You want some?
I liked Luke Cage. There's a lot of things that I liked about Luke Cage. I liked Michael Coulter, and I liked his portrayal of Luke Cage. I liked the strong moral center that Luke Cage had. His whole heart was just to help the people of Harlem. He was there fighting for the little guy. And so I really liked that. I liked the heart of his character. I like what he stands for. So I just thought, dang, this is such a good character. And the other thing I liked is, so we get introduced to him in Jessica Jones. And one way they definitely could have gone with this show with Luke Cage is it could have been a prequel series to Daredevil to Jessica Jones, just to show you how he became Luke Cage. I like that it didn't do that. I like that this show just moved forward. Where we left off with Luke Cage's character in Jessica Jones, that's where we pick up with him in Luke Cage. And then through flashbacks, we get his origin story, which I also wanted to see, because I'm not super familiar with these Defenders heroes, and so I like to know their origins. I like to know where they came from, so it was really cool that we did move forward with Luke Cage, and at the same time, we got some of those flashbacks to get to know how he got his abilities, which I thought was really cool. And I like Claire. She's like the character that connects all of these characters, so it was just really cool to finally, see her find somebody that she, loves, because, you know, they had that little playful thing between her and Daredevil. Will they, won't they, all that stuff, whatever. But now finally with Luke Cage, like, she and her just connected. And I thought that was really cool. I thought they were a really good match for each other. So things like that I really enjoyed. Now, the downside of Luke Cage is I just feel like the whole first half of the season had a lot of great momentum. And I really, really enjoyed it. And then I felt like when you got to the second half of Luke Cage, it began to lose that momentum, which for a superhero genre type thing, in the second half, you don't want to be losing that momentum. And for me, one of the most disappointing things about Luke Cage was the final battle between Luke and Diamondback. Like, I just was so disappointed by that final fight. I mean, they made this big deal that Diamondback's suit was like kind of like an Iron Man super suit, giving him that strength and kind of invulnerability so that he can fight against Luke Cage and be able to stand toe-to-toe with him. And the suit, to me, just looks so cheesy. And the last fight, it was just so cheesy. And so I was just like, ah. So that was disappointing. But overall, though, I love the heart of the character. And the whole first half of the show had a good momentum for me. So that's kind of me with Luke Cage. Number 3.
I am the Iron Fist.
There's a lot of things about Iron Fist that I really did enjoy. I did notice that, you know, as I look online, this is the one that divides a lot of people, and a lot of people did not like this one. I get why, and I'll touch on that in a second, but there were things that I did like about it. First off, I thought Harold Meacham was a great villain for this show. One of the things I really liked about him is how much we learned about the Hand through him. We learned a lot about the Hand's resurrection technology through him. Like, you know, he had cancer, but because he got in with the Hand when he died, they brought him back to life. But then we learn the consequences of that. When he gets brought back to life, a piece of himself still remains dead. Like, he loses a piece of his soul. And then when his son Ward kills him, he doesn't stay dead because he didn't get his head cut off. So we learn that kind of strength and that weakness of getting the head cut off. So we learn that whole interesting side of this resurrection technology through Harold Meacham. On top of the fact, he turned out to be a really great villain. His son Ward, it was really cool to kind of watch his character arc for me. You know, he starts as this really strong, confident guy running the company with his sister Joy, and then we see his dad is pulling all the strings. Then we see him lose it and he tries to kill his own dad, and then we see him just completely fall apart. Then we see him try to rebuild himself in a more honorable way. There's just something about Ward's character that I found interesting in watching his character grow. I like Colleen. I thought she was a great match for Danny Rand. I enjoyed her character, and one of the things I liked about her character was learning more about the Hand through her. That the Hand took her and they accepted her and they gave her a purpose, and she truly believed she was part of the good branch of the Hand. And there's this bad branch that gives them all such a bad name, but she's part of that good branch, you know? Bakudo, what a good guy! No, they're all bad. Oopsie daisy. And to me, that was just such an interesting storyline, you know, to see that through Colleen, to see the Hand through her eyes, to see her discovery of their true identity and things like that. I thought that was really interesting. And I liked Danny Rand overall. I thought he was a pretty cool character. The martial arts and the fighting scenes were really cool. But there's one big problem for me. And my mom and sister were out visiting on vacation, and my mom really pointed it out to me this time as we were watching, because she watched all of Iron Fist because she hadn't seen it, and then we went through Defenders while they were out here. And the one thing my mom could not help but notice was how often Danny Rand cries. You know, I always thought he was probably the whiniest of the bunch in all these series, but I guess I didn't count how many times he cried. But when I had my mom sitting next to me going, he's crying again! Like, every time he cries, he's crying again! That dude really does cry so flippin' much throughout this show. And then you would hope by the time you get to Defenders, it's better. It's marginally better. He still cries an awful lot in the Defenders. And I feel like that's kind of the weakest point of his character. And I get what they're going for. He was a kid when he was adopted by Kunlun. He was a kid when he grew up there. He didn't learn how to deal with his emotions. He didn't learn how to work through it. He took that stuff and he pushed it aside and tried to put all this other stuff on top. But that doesn't really help. So, I mean, I get where they were going with that character, and it could be very interesting. But I think the thing that was just hard to watch is just how much this dude cries. I mean, he cries a lot. Just saying. But, I mean, overall, I still pretty much enjoyed the show. Number 2.
I'm glad we found each other. I'm not hugging you.
The Defenders. I did enjoy The Defenders, but to be honest with you, there were things that disappointed me about it. One thing that disappointed me about The Defenders was how long it took me to really get into the show. Like, the first 2 episodes just felt so slow for me. And then to find out that it's not 13 episodes like the others, it's 8 episodes, which I thought, oh, it's condensed, it's gonna be awesome. But no, the first 2, it just felt like it kind of dragged for me. But then by the time we got to the 3rd episode, both the story and the action began to pick up for me, and then I really got into it, and I really enjoyed it. I felt like the way it ended, and since it's the newest one, I won't get into any spoilers with it, but the way it ended, there was parts of it that was like, I kind of wish there was a little bit more, because it wasn't like as satisfying as I would have wanted it to be, but at the same time, it was a pretty good setup for the individual characters to have their shows again later. Like, where Daredevil's gonna pick up from where Defenders left off, I'm pretty excited to see that. Where Iron Fist is gonna go from where this left off, I'm pretty excited to see that. So there's things that I'm looking forward to that this show kind of made me excited about. But it started slow for me. But like Sigourney Weaver, she was a great villain in this show. It was cool to learn more about the Hand. Like I said earlier, I didn't really grow up on the Defenders characters reading their comics, so learning about the 5 fingers of the Hand through this show was actually very, very interesting to me. So there was a lot of things that really interested me, and I think it took the strengths and the best part of these characters and it brought them together. So a lot of that stuff I really did enjoy. Number 1.
I respect your conviction. The lone man thinks he can make a difference.
This darkness is the light.
I'm just trying to make my city a better place.
Daredevil. I've talked about this show quite a few times, so a lot of videos you could go back to see why this is my number 1. But just to touch on it here real quick, it's 2 solid seasons that to me are great. I've loved the martial arts action. I've loved the writing of this show. I loved the villains. I loved getting introduced to Kingpin. I loved Vincent D'Onofrio as that role. It was just absolutely amazing. I love what they did with season 2, where we learned about the Hand. We dove into what the Hand is all about. We got these great mysteries like, what is this pit, which we got answered in the Defenders and things like that. Like, there was a lot of really cool things that they brought up. The way we got introduced to the Punisher in the first half of the show, got introduced to Elektra in the second half of the show, and then the way they brought it all together to me, which was a very satisfying tying up of all these storylines. Like, I enjoyed all of that. So for me, Daredevil's my number 1 because I've had 2 solid seasons of this show where I have just truly enjoyed it. So what are your thoughts on these Marvel Netflix shows? What is your ranking of each of these shows? Are they different? I hope they are, because I cannot wait to have a conversation with you about it in the description. In the description? No, in the comment section. That's what I meant to say. I look forward to having a conversation with you about it in the comment section. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to the subscribe button is that bell. Click that bell so you're notified the moment I drop new videos. I want to give a huge shout out to Rachel Wagner. She's a new patron for me on Patreon, so thank you, Rachel, for your giving. It means so much to me. She also has a fantastic YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend that you go over there, say hi, thank her for supporting Durbania. She's awesome. She has a great channel. So Rachel, thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. If you want to check out my Patreon, I do have the link to that in my description below. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.